Calvin Robinson is a leading British Conservative journalist and commentator. He's a senior fellow at Policy Exchange. He was involved in the planning and building of a new secondary school in North London, and he was a director and governor of Michaela Community School, which recently achieved the best GCSE exam results, that's the equivalent of the HSC, in the United Kingdom. Unsurprisingly, with that resume, Calvin is currently consulting for Boris Johnson's Department for Education, and he is also a regular contributor to the UK Telegraph, Daily Mail, The Spectator, and to Talk Radio. Calvin is a campaign champion for, I love this, defund the BBC and don't divide us. Calvin, great to have you on Outsiders. How are you, mate?
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
So before we get into education or the BBC and what appears to be the death of free speech in Britain, you were the subject the other day, Calvin, of another one of these ridiculous race rows. Tell us what happened.
Well, this is the thing. For me, this is an everyday occurrence, but it's being picked up by the media because this time it was a race charity that attacked me. It was the director of a company called the Race Trust who put out a tweet saying that this Calvin Robinson needs to be dealt with, and doubled down by tweeting from her charity's account that I'm a house N-word. I don't know if we're allowed to say this, the actual word on the station.
We'll leave it at house N-word. We'll let the viewers fill in the rest. Thanks, Calvin. Yep. Carry on.
But then, of course, the idea there is that I don't own my opinions because I'm brown and my opinions are small c conservative, that somehow I must be puppeteered by a white master. You know, that's the idea behind the house N-word, in that somehow I am betraying my own race, as if being brown means you have to think a certain way and vote a certain way. How dare I have different opinions? You know, these people on the hard left say they're campaigning for equality and diversity. But the moment someone expresses a different thought or opinion, they're like, well, wait, not that kind of equality, not that kind of diversity. It is bonkers. But like I say, this happens every day. This is a common occurrence. It's just been picked up on this one occasion. I'm very happy that it's been exposed because the new racists are actually the ones that call themselves anti-racist. And we see that in a lot of these people that call themselves anti-something, like Antifa, tend to have fascist ideologies. Yes. Anti-racists are the ones that are hurling racial abuse at people for just expressing a normal opinion.
James.
To this tweet, this latest incident, I mean, you say that this happens all the time. And what does that say about just how far all of this critical race theory and divisive thinking has infiltrated British society, whether it's through the media, the BBC, or academia, or Parliament, or what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the problem, that critical race theory, you know, the idea that white people are oppressors and black people are somehow victims based on the colour of their skin, is so pernicious. It is so infested in British society that all of our public institutions are on board with this messaging now. But the divide is that most of the normal people, most of the common folk don't subscribe to this nonsense. And that's why we're at such a toxic area at the moment, because in schools, for example, we're telling young kids, you know, you are black or you are Asian, so you are going to be held back. You're going to have a harder time in this country with all the systemic racism that's going on, all these hurdles you're going to have to overcome. And if you tell a young person that often enough, they're going to start to believe it. When, of course, it's not true. This country is a fantastic place to live. It's diverse, it's tolerant, it's inclusive. You know, we have equal opportunities over here. If you work hard, you can achieve whatever you want to. And that's the message we should be sending to young people, but we're not. And we're telling, at the same time, we're telling white kids that, you know what, you're racist, whether you realize it or not. Maybe you're overtly racist, or maybe you're subconsciously racist, and you're going to have some unconscious bias training to whip it out of you. And if you dare stand up to this messaging and say, actually, I'm not sure that critical race theory is a legitimate theory, then that is further proof that you're a racist. So it's got a Kafkaesque trap built in. It's very, very smart, actually.
Rita.
Well, is there any overcoming that? Because, as you said, this is just absolutely dominates in public institutions, particularly education. Will the next generations, the millennials and Gen Z, know this is a nonsense, or are they going to grow up with this oppressed narrative playing in their minds for the rest of their lives?
Well, I think people are starting to wake up. So obviously this week, the abuse I've had has taken some attention, and that's what we need to do, keep exposing them for the racists that they are, and ask people to follow the money trail. So, for example, the race trust and companies like them are making money off of us being divided. So they're selling unconscious bias training. They're selling books about how evil the white man is and, all these race-baiting ideas. So if our country does become united, they're no longer going to make any money. I think if we keep raising that and opening people's eyes to this is a massive multi-billion pound, multi-million dollar industry, then they'll start to think, okay, what are their motives here? And we need to think about how do we bring people back together. So at the moment, nuance is dead. As I mentioned, if you critique this critical race theory, you are a racist. So we need to think of ways of saying, actually, we're not just black and we're not just white. They may be parts of our identity, but they're parts that we don't get to choose. What's more important? We're Christian, we're British, we're Australian. These things are the things that we choose. These are the important things that bring us together as subjects of the Commonwealth. These are the things that unite us. Let's focus on them and not let people divide us, not let people put us into these categories that we can't control, because that's how they control us.
Calvin, you've been working with Lawrence Fox, who's been on this show several times, a great friend of this show, with his Reclaim Party. You've been involved in that. What's happening there? Tell us the latest.
Well, there'll be some exciting news coming up shortly, I'm very sure. Lawrence is doing amazing stuff, and he's one of the best free speech champions in the country at the moment. And the idea is essentially that, we have a Conservative government with an 80-strong majority, but they're not always putting Conservative policies forward. So they need a party on the fringe to kind of hold them accountable, much like the Brexit Party did last year, and the last few years, actually, to make sure that we got Brexit done properly. Lawrence Fox's Reclaim Party is going to ensure that the Conservatives stay conservative in some aspects and fight these culture wars and not be afraid of them. Because like I said earlier, most common people in this country, most ordinary people in this country have common sense values, conservative values. They don't want to be told there are 100 genders when they know there are 2. They don't want to be told that they're bad just for being a white person when they know that they're not racist. All of this stuff is a nonsense to them, and they want someone to stand up for them and say, actually, yes, we're not going to peddle this rubbish. We're not going to force you to do unconscious bias training because it means nothing. And we know that you're all good people. And that's what Lawrence Party's Reclaim Party is all about.
Well, Calvin Robinson, I think we could do with you out in Australia as well. Could you split yourself in two and come out here? Or you'd have to do a couple of weeks quarantine. But anyway, we have a Prime Minister who said the other day, I don't really care about wokeness. Who cares if you're too woke or whatever? And again, supposedly a Conservative Prime Minister. Calvin Robinson, thanks so much for chatting to Outsiders, and hope we can do it again. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thank you very much.